So I remember standing in the middle of the lobby of Aliso Viejo Theater. And as I'm standing there, I go over to the side and I am so angry. It's 4 months since my lung transplant. And they basically said there are germs everywhere and you have to be isolated to some degree. And so 4 months later, I kind of got permission to go, but I still didn't feel comfortable. I was scared, I was afraid, and I was angry because my family wanted to go. And so I'm angry and I start blaming them. And so anytime I start getting angry nowadays, I realize I've got to go back and figure out where did the anger come from. Because in this case, mad was covering the sad. Because I was afraid. I was afraid of getting sick. All I could see were germs everywhere. And the reality for me is that once the lung transplant happened, they put me on all these medicines. I mean, I'm on more medicines than you could imagine. And the medicines turn down your immune system. So every germ, every sickness, they told me I couldn't eat sushi because the bacteria that my body was fighting before couldn't fight it anymore because they turned my immune system from a 10 down to a 2. A cold, if I got it, I'd be sick for a long time. And if I got the flu, they told me I had to call them immediately at UCLA and I had to get up there because the flu could kill me. And so with this current coronavirus outbreak, this epidemic, this apocalypse, whatever you want to call it, I feel like I've been doing this for 4 years. I've been living this life. I mean, Purell I'm one of their best customers because I've always got this with me. I got them all over the house because I've got to always keep my hands clean. This social distance, I'm a veteran at that. I've been doing it forever. Hiding in the side at Aliso Viejo Theater. These masks, these N95 masks. I was doing it before it was cool. And so I felt like with this season, the best way to start this off is for me to share my experience of how to be alive in a world that can kill you. Because that's the experience I've been going through. And so that's where I want us to start. I'm going to try to keep this short because I want you to be able to go through this, take notes, especially on the scripture, and then for you to be able to discuss it in your group or with your family or however you're doing this for this first time. So the first thing I want to share with you is that we need to be wise, but we don't need to be afraid. The first thing that happened to me is that I was just afraid, and it would come in waves, and it still comes today. It's not like it just disappeared. It's not like I'm just walking around with no fear. I walk around with courage, which means while the fear is there, I still move, but the fear is natural. But God tells us, do not be afraid. When you think about it, we shared this last week. Paul, who had to face death all the time, he said this in 1 Corinthians. He said, "Oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting?" So if we're not going to be afraid of death, then we don't need to be afraid of a virus. We're not going to get into the science of the coronavirus this morning. I want us to talk more about just that fear that begins to overcome. And just prior to the lung transplant, I was on literally my deathbed, the bed at UCLA. And the doctor started calling my family saying, "You need to come and say goodbye." And yet, I want to communicate to you that I can say, don't be afraid, because I was there at that crossroads, and the Lord was so clear to me, saying, you don't have to be afraid. You're mine. You belong to me. I've got you. That didn't mean I was going to stay here, but that He has me. Our confidence is that we belong to him. That we need to replace our fear with faith, and it's a decision. You can't control the emotions as they come and go, but you can control where you want to put your trust in. And I couldn't put my trust in my breath. I put it in him. And facing death, I had no fear. Not because I'm special, but because God's peace overcame me. And that's what he offers to us. And right now, at this time, all around us, including some of you, you're struggling with your security, the things that you built your life upon, or at least that you were leaning heavily on, have now become sand, and they've been washed away. For some of us, it's jobs. You've either lost your jobs or your income has gone significantly down, or maybe you own a business, and that business, you're worried about losing that business, the income for your family, because of the economy. It's all upside down. Some of you, your security is in your routine, and your routine's completely thrown off now. The streets are empty. The tasks that you had don't exist anymore. Schools. Why are my kids around me all the time? You were depending on school to care for them, or it just gave you that break. And now that routine's thrown off and we don't know what we're going to do. Maybe it's your health. Maybe the security of your health, like I'm invincible. And now you realize, oh my gosh, that could all be taken away. It could all be washed away like a house that's built on sand. Your loved one's health, even the government. You're like, wait a minute, do you guys not know what you're doing? Toilet paper. We could depend on toilet paper before. Now we don't even know where to find it. We're trying to come up with new and unique ways to do what's got to be done. I mean, it's this whole idea that things have changed, but we don't have to be afraid. There's no reason, because God has us in his hands. As we've been looking at in this season, we're going to be going through the Sermon on the Mount. And at the very end of Jesus' teaching, this whole teaching on what life is supposed to look like, what this new life is supposed to look like, he says that we need to build our house like the man that built his house on the rock. And when the rains came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew against our life, it won't fall because we have our foundation on the rock. But some of this that we built on has been washed away. And so we realize this is a great time to realize, wait, what have I been putting my faith into? What have I been putting my trust into? And so we have an opportunity to grow in our faith, to grow closer to him, and to not hear it from someone else telling you you don't need to be afraid, but that you can personally experience that fear being washed away because he has you. The second thing that I've learned, and I want to close with this, is that I've learned that you have life so that you can give life. It was so easy right after the surgery and right after all of the things that they washed away from me and all the things that they told me I couldn't do and all the things they said I needed to be concerned about. It was easy for me to try to run and hide, to just become so self-centered in caring for just myself. And I remember sitting with a surgeon after a follow-up appointment, and he could recognize that in me by the questions I was asking him. I said, can I do this? Could I do that? Could I do this? Can I do that? And he was used to it because he's done so many transplants and been with so many patients. And he said, we saved your life so that you could live life. So get out there. And to hear from a secular man telling me, you're supposed to be living. That's why we do these surgeries. And so at this time, at this season, we have the opportunity to not just live, not just breathe, not just survive, but to be alive. And we need to take advantage of that. And as we take advantage of that, we need to share it with others because we were meant to give life to others. This verse I'd read plenty of times, but on one of those nights, and I don't know which night because it was hard for me to keep track of time, I had a vision from God while I was on my deathbed, and I was sitting with him. I hadn't died, but I was sitting with him. And this was so clear to me. This verse came, and I've held on to it ever since. And so I want you to know it and to live it, especially during this time. It's from Philippians 1:20 and 21. And Paul, who faced death daily, was the one that said this. Now, as always, Christ will be honored in my life, whether dead or alive, because for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. To live is Christ and to die is gain. The focus is on living. We're here. It's not over. Now, science and common sense tells us that it's not smart to be in physical contact with a lot of people right now because of the contagiousness of this unknown virus. So we need to be smart, but we can still love others. We can still take this life that we've been given and share it to others. That's what we're here for on this earth. And so during this season, we're not going to hide in our basements. We're going to look for ways that we can bring life to others, because this crisis has opened up the doors for us to love others. Because there are so many people that are alone, that are afraid. Their life has been washed away because they built it on sand. And so we have the opportunity not only to share this good news, maybe there's some that you invited over to your house right now that can hear this, but you can practically serve those in need. I heard a story that just happened a few days ago where a young lady was going into the grocery store. And as she's going in, she hears this voice, "Help, hey, hello." And so she looks over, and it's this older couple in a car. They're about 80 years old. And so she walks over to the car, and the lady starts to roll the window down just a little bit more, not all the way. And she says, "We've been in our car for about 45 minutes because we've been told that we can die if we go into that grocery store, but we need food and none of our family's nearby. Can you get our groceries for us?" And so she puts the grocery list through the little small opening in the window and some cash. And the girl, she's young, she takes it, she goes in, she gets all their groceries, she comes back out, they pop the trunk, she puts the food in the trunk and gives back the change. That's what we do. But we can't just wait for that to happen. We can't wait for someone to call out to us. We need to look for those opportunities. So we're going to keep these messages short so that you can pray together, because some of you are meeting in groups, and some of you in these groups, hopefully most of you, can take this time to pray and then go and do something. Actively look for opportunities. So I wanted to give you some ideas of things that you could do, because it's time. It's time. So here's what you can do. In Hebrews 10:24, the verse is, "Let's see how inventive we can be in encouraging love and helping out." So let's be inventive. When you're done, you can go out and pray over the neighborhood. You can either walk, you can drive. In Singapore, which they're on the upswing from this virus. So to give us hope, this is temporary. Those in Singapore have already gone through it, say that because they've been praying for their neighbors, they now feel a sense of responsibility for the spiritual well-being of their community. And some of them have actually been able to share the good news with those in their neighborhood because they've actually interacted with them. First, we're going to care and support for the church, those in branches and those that are believers. One Chinese church did this amazing thing. There was a woman in their church who did get the virus, and she was very sick. And she ended up passing away. She was quite old. But they cared for her. They looked after her. And then when it came time for her funeral, they videotaped the funeral and sent it back to her family that was in a different province. We can care for the people in our church. We can also go and buy food certificates, those little gift cards. because a lot of the small businesses are surviving on such a small margin that it would be very helpful to them if we went and gave them income. But you can use the card later once the virus has passed, once we figured out how to deal with it. And yet these businesses can continue to go on. That's just a simple way you can care for others. You can care for the many healthcare workers. In China, one of the churches, and by the way, it's illegal to be a Christian in China, so they were taking great risk by making themselves be known. But this church said, we've got to help the healthcare workers. So they would write them notes, they would go and support them and care for them, they'd watch for their kids while they were caring on the front lines for the sick. You can offer, like that young girl, to care for the elderly and the disabled, the people that need it the most during this time, that are most self-isolating. We can be there for them. There are many times in Christian history where it stood out because we as Christians were caring for those who were poor during famines, during wars, during persecution. This is our time. This is our time to reach out. So what we're going to do is over the next few weeks, we're going to do this for at least 30 days. We're going to be meeting in homes. And for those that can't meet in homes, we're going to be doing this online in terms of the message. We're going to look at how to maybe do it with Facebook Live as well. We didn't want to try today and mess it up. But that way we can interact more. But for now, we'll do it this way on YouTube and on the website. But we'll continue to meet. And I think this is so important for us to remember. Church is not canceled. I hear this from people saying this about other churches, about us. So you've canceled church. We're the church. We're not canceling us. We're just gathering in a different way. And so our intent is for us to do this, for me to finish early, or whoever else is teaching, and pray together and look for ways that we can take this life that we have and give it to others. If you're not part of a group, you can email at admin@branchesoc.com and say you want to be in a group or you want to start a group. We also need a few people that would help to gather these suggestions and these needs so that we can create some kind of task force, some kind of way that we can care for the people inside branches and outside. And so as you're meeting your groups, you're going to come up with ideas and you may need help with those ideas. Please share those. Also email at admin@branchesoc.com. This is very fluid. Things are developing and changing. So we will make changes and adjust as we move forward. But I wanted to close with this. I heard this from somebody else and I wanted to share it with you. Because the truth is right now, we are contagious. And what I mean by that is we are contagious either with our sacrifice or with our selfishness. And so people around us are going to take on the attitude that we have. You've been to the grocery stores, you've seen the YouTube videos, you've seen the people that are just being crazy, but you've also seen these pictures of beauty. Let's create those pictures of beauty because that's contagious. But this is what I heard. A friend of mine in Sri Lanka shared this, and I want to close with these words. He said, wash your hands as if your life depended on it, but wash others' feet as if their life depended on it. So I'm going to pray for us briefly, and then you can pray together as a group. Father, use us. We surrender our fears. We surrender our concerns and our needs. And we ask that you would gather us underneath you, that you would teach us how to not stop meeting together, but to encourage one another all the more, to spur one another on towards love and good deeds. So our trust is in you, and we look forward to this season of growing closer to you and to each other. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, let's do it.